New Mexico has a town that literally sold its name to a radio game show, an atomic bomb the scientists casually nicknamed the Gadget, a constitution that bans idiots from voting, but forgot to define what an idiot actually is, and, oh yeah, the only McDonald's on Earth shaped like a flying saucer. I dug up 71 of the dumbest, most jaw-dropping things about this state that somehow nobody ever talks about. And trust me, number 43 will ruin your entire week. If your brain is already tingling, do me a favor and smash that hype button right now, so this video reaches more curious minds like yours. Let's get into it. 1. Picture this, the year is 1911, and New Mexico is busy writing its shiny new constitution to finally join the United States. Somewhere in that document, the lawmakers decided to ban idiots from voting, which sounds reasonable until you realize nobody bothered to actually define what an idiot is. Judges scratched their heads, voters laughed nervously, and the law became completely impossible to enforce. Yet somehow, this ridiculous rule is still sitting quietly on the books today, waiting for someone brave enough to decide who qualifies. 2. Imagine being a Hispanic rancher in Los Alamos in 1943, living peacefully on your family land, when suddenly the United States government knocks on your door and gives you 15 days to pack up and leave forever. The ranchers received a painful $12 per acre for their homes, while white school owners down the road were handed $3,650 for a single football field. Families watched generations of heritage vanish overnight, all because Uncle Sam needed a secret spot to build an atomic bomb. 3. Back in 1599, Spanish Governor Juan de Oñate decided to teach the Acoma Pueblo a lesson they would never forget. After a small uprising, he ordered every Acoma man over the age of 25 to have his right foot chopped off as punishment. 24 warriors actually suffered this horrifying sentence while their families watched in absolute horror. Oñate believed he was proving Spanish dominance, but history remembers him as one of the most brutal governors ever. 4. Nobody expected the dusty New Mexico territory to become the murder capital of America, but the numbers told a shocking story. During the territorial era, the homicide rate climbed to 47 times the national average, turning peaceful-looking towns into absolute war zones. On just this one territory somehow accounted for 15% of every single murder happening across the entire United States. Cowboys shot cowboys, outlaws shot sheriffs, and everybody seemed to be shooting somebody on a dusty Tuesday afternoon. 5. Billy the Kid pulled off the most ridiculous prison escape in American history without even breaking a sweat. While climbing the stairway in custody, he casually slipped his unusually small, for the winter was freezing cold, food was scarce, and soldiers showed zero mercy to anyone who fell behind the group. One pregnant Navajo woman went into labor during the march and simply could not keep up with the pace. Instead of helping her or waiting, a soldier coldly shot her dead right there in the snow. 6. Kit Carson marched 8,000 Navajo men, women, and children on a brutal 300-mile journey in 1864 called the Long Walk. The winter was freezing cold, food was scarce, and soldiers showed zero mercy to anyone who fell behind the group. One pregnant Navajo woman went into labor during the march and simply could not keep up with the pace. Instead of helping her or waiting, a soldier coldly shot her dead right there in the snow. 7. For decades, everybody was convinced that Roswell hid real alien bodies from a mysterious crashed flying saucer. The truth turned out to be almost funnier than the legend itself. The so-called alien corpses were just crash test dummies the United States Air Force had been secretly dropping from high-altitude planes during the 1950s. Rancher witnesses spotted these featureless mannequins lying in the desert, stared at their blank plastic faces, and immediately assumed little green men from outer space had finally arrived. 8. New Mexico kept knocking on America's door, asking to become a state, and Congress kept slamming that door shut for decades straight. The reason was embarrassingly prejudiced, as lawmakers believed the Catholic Spanish-speaking majority living there was simply too foreign to be considered properly American. Senators wrinkled their noses at the Spanish signs, the Catholic churches, and the bilingual families, deciding these folks needed to become more white bread before joining the club. New Mexico waited 60 long, frustrating years for approval. 9. Santa Fe holds a record no other American city can match, having served as the capital under 5 completely different governments throughout its wild history. And first came the Spanish conquistadors, then the Pueblo Indians reclaimed it during their successful 1680 revolt, followed by newly independent Mexico taking charge. Then the Confederacy briefly raised their flag there during the Civil War, before the United States finally claimed it permanently. 5 different flags, 5 different rulers, and one very confused capital city just trying to keep up. 10. The Trinity atomic bomb blast was supposed to be America's biggest secret, but hiding a nuclear explosion proved harder than expected. The thunderous boom traveled 160 miles across the desert and rattled windows all the way over in El Paso, Texas. Terrified residents flooded the phone lines demanding answers about the mysterious, shaking sky. Army officials panicked and quickly invented a silly cover story blaming the whole thing on an ammunition magazine explosion, which absolutely nobody with working ears actually believed. 11. Like singing the state song of New Mexico sounds like a patriotic activity until you learn the ridiculous legal twist attached to it. Improperly performing. Fair, New Mexico in public is officially classified as a petty misdemeanor under state law. That means if somebody butchers the melody at a town event or forgets the lyrics halfway through, they could technically face criminal charges for their terrible singing. Shower singers across the state better hope nobody ever decides to actually enforce this wonderfully absurd forgotten rule. 12. The Trinity Downwinders had one of the saddest stories in American nuclear history that nobody bothered to fix for decades. These New Mexicans got dosed with dangerous radiation during the 1945 atomic test through no fault of their own. Yet the federal government excluded them from radiation compensation programs for a shocking 78 years straight. Meanwhile, Nevada test victims received billions of dollars without much fuss. New Mexicans watched their neighbors die from cancers, while Washington politicians pretended these forgotten desert families simply never existed at all. 13. The legendary 1947 Roswell debris that launched 1,000 alien conspiracy theories actually came from a top-secret military program called Project Mogul. This classified operation involved high-altitude balloons, specifically designed to spy on Soviet nuclear weapon tests during the early Cold War era. When one crashed into a New Mexico ranch, Army officials panicked about revealing their spy technology. So they quickly invented the silly weather balloon lie to cover everything up, accidentally birthing the biggest UFO mystery in human history. 14. The Spanish encomienda system sounded fancy in official documents, but worked exactly like legalized slavery for the Pueblo people. Indigenous families were forced to hand over a large portion of every harvest they grew to their Spanish overlords. On top of that back-breaking tribute, they had to work inside Spanish homes for absolutely no payment whatsoever. Men, women, and even children cooked, cleaned, and hauled water while their own crops rotted. Spain called it civilization, but the Pueblo people recognized it as pure bondage. 15. Doc Holliday did not start his New Mexico career waving pistols in dusty saloons like the movies suggest. The legendary gunslinger actually began his professional life as a perfectly respectable trained dentist, pulling teeth and filling cavities. His tuberculosis diagnosis forced him to relocate to the dry southwestern climate for his failing lungs. Somewhere along the way, this gentle dental surgeon traded his drill for a revolver and became one of the deadliest shooters in the Wild West. His patients probably never saw that career change coming. 16. White Sands National Park tricks visitors with its name because the famous sparkling sand is not sand at all. The entire 275 square mile landscape is actually made of crushed gypsum crystal shimmering under the desert sun. This geological wonder holds the title of the largest gypsum dune field in anywhere on planet Earth. The tourists kick off their shoes expecting normal beach grains, and instead find themselves walking on powdery mineral crystals. The sand even stays cool under the hot sun, totally breaking everyone's brains. 17. Congress almost made New Mexico a slave state in 1861 as part of a desperate political gamble to prevent the Civil War. Southern politicians pushed hard for the plan, hoping this compromise would keep their plantation economy happy and delay the coming conflict. Northern lawmakers reluctantly considered the idea while holding their noses at the whole concept. The entire scheme completely collapsed just days before Confederate cannons opened fire on Fort Sumter, making the pointless debate one of the strangest forgotten footnotes in American political history. 18. Where Clyde Tombaugh was a young New Mexico astronomer in 1930 when he made a discovery that rewrote every science textbook on Earth. Squinting through his telescope at tiny dots of distant light, he spotted Pluto and instantly earned his state cosmic bragging rights. Then, in 2006, astronomers got together, changed the rules, and cruelly demoted poor Pluto from planet status to dwarf planet. That historic downgrade made New Mexico the only state in America that technically gained and then painfully lost an entire planet. 19. The sleepy town of Hot Springs did something so ridiculous in 1950 that people still joke about it today. A popular radio game show called Truth or Consequences offered publicity to any town willing to legally change its name. The local residents shrugged, voted yes, and officially became Truth or Consequences, yes, New Mexico, just to win a silly advertising stunt. The town never reversed this wild decision, meaning every driver license, mailing address, and road sign still proudly displays the absurd game show name forever. 20. Pueblo leader Pope pulled off one of the most successful Native American revolts in history, but the human cost behind it was genuinely heartbreaking. While planning the massive 1680 uprising against Spanish rule, he became terrified that someone in his inner circle might leak the secret plans. His own son-in-law was acting suspiciously, so Pope made a chilling leadership decision. He murdered the man himself to protect the operation. That ruthless sacrifice helped guarantee the revolt's shocking success against Spanish colonizers. 21. In the quiet town of Carrizozo, somebody once decided women needed extremely specific grooming rules written directly into local law. An old ordinance actually made it technically illegal for any woman to appear in public without shaving her legs first. Nobody seems to remember exactly why lawmakers felt this bizarre intrusion was necessary back then. Even weirder, the ridiculous rule was never officially removed from the books. So technically speaking, unshaven ladies walking down Main Street could still face some forgotten dusty legal consequences today. 22. Los Alamos was so wrapped in secrecy during World War II that its very existence was basically erased from official records. Babies born to Manhattan Project scientists had their birth certificates stamped with the mysterious address of Post Office Box 1663 in Santa Fe. The entire town did not appear on any maps, any signs, or any government documents whatsoever. Thousands of families lived, worked, and raised children inside a place that officially did not exist anywhere in America until the bomb finally dropped. 23. Roswell really leans into its famous alien reputation with a tourist attraction nobody else in the world can claim. The city proudly hosts the only flying saucer-shaped McDonald's restaurant found anywhere on planet Earth. Customers can bite into their Big Macs inside a building designed like an actual crashed UFO straight out of the movies. The surrounding downtown streets even feature alien-themed streetlights shaped like little green men. Tourists snap thousands of photos because absolutely nothing about this place makes logical sense. 24. Governor Bernardo López de Mendizábal got labeled a heretic by Spanish friars in 1660 for committing the terrible crime of basic human decency. His shocking offense was simply trying to stop Catholic priests from forcing native populations into unpaid forced labor inside their missions. The friars absolutely lost their minds about losing their free workforce and dragged him before religious courts. Church officials punished him severely for daring to question the system. Sometimes in colonial New Mexico, kindness itself was treated as a dangerous crime against God. 25. Pat Garrett rode into legend as the brave sheriff who finally gunned down Billy the Kid in 1881. The famous lawman enjoyed his hero status for decades afterward, telling stories and living off his bounty money. Then, in 1908, somebody ambushed and murdered Pat Garrett on a lonely stretch of road near Las Cruces. The entire killing remains one of history's most frustrating unsolved mysteries. Despite plenty of suspects and confessions, No shooter was ever convicted for the crime. Karma apparently caught up with the famous kid killer. 26. Capulin Volcano in northeastern New Mexico gives visitors a geography lesson that honestly seems impossible at first glance. Standing on top of this single cinder cone peak, anyone can clearly see 5 entire states stretching across the distant horizon. The spectacular view captures New Mexico, Colorado, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas all at once from one volcanic summit. Tourists squint their eyes, turn their heads, and struggle to believe their geography teacher was wrong about state boundaries being complicated. This one extinct volcano basically mocks American map-making completely. 27. Arizona was not always its own state, and actually existed as part of the massive New Mexico territory until 1863. That means the absolutely breathtaking Grand Canyon technically belonged to New Mexico for nearly 2 entire decades before the split. Imagine New Mexico license plates proudly advertising one of the 7 natural wonders of the world as their own. The federal government eventually carved Arizona off into a separate territory during the Civil War. Ever since, New Mexicans have been quietly salty about losing their famous giant hole. 28. New Mexico's state fossil, the dinosaur called Coelophysis, achieved something absolutely nobody saw coming in prehistoric creature history. Now, this ancient extinct reptile became the second dinosaur ever launched into outer space aboard a real rocket mission. In 1998, its fossilized skull rode the Space Shuttle Endeavour all the way up to the Mir space station orbiting Earth. Astronauts carefully floated the ancient skeleton through zero gravity while scientists watched in amazement. Somehow, a 200-million-year-old reptile beat most Americans to space travel. 29. Santa Fe holds a historical bragging right that honestly makes the Pilgrims look fashionably late to the American party. The beautiful Spanish capital was officially founded way back in 1610, which happens to be a full decade before the Mayflower even reached Plymouth Rock. While history textbooks celebrate those black-hatted pilgrims stepping onto chilly Massachusetts shores, Santa Fe was already hosting bustling markets and busy streets. New Mexicans love quietly reminding East Coast tourists that their state capital was thriving before Plymouth Colony even existed anywhere on any map. 30. Kit Carson ran one of the cruelest military campaigns in American history against the Navajo Nation to force their complete surrender. He ordered soldiers to burn every single peach orchard, slaughter every animal, and poison every water well the tribe depended on for survival. The scorched earth tactics eventually worked through pure devastation and starvation. The strangest twist is that Carson himself was completely illiterate and personally doubted the brutal strategy would actually succeed. He followed orders anyway, destroying centuries of Navajo farming overnight across the territory. 31. But New Mexico lawmakers apparently had a very specific concern about horse cruelty when they wrote one of the most oddly named laws in state history. Tripping a horse is officially classified as a 4th-degree felony punishable by serious prison time. The strange offense appears directly in the state criminal code under the label unlawful tripping of an equine. Somewhere in the past, enough people were apparently tripping horses for fun that lawmakers needed to step in. Offenders caught yanking ropes at passing horses face genuine legal consequences today. 32. Scientists at the Los Alamos laboratory gave the most world-changing weapon ever invented an absolutely ridiculous nickname that sounds completely inappropriate. They called the first atomic bomb the Gadget, like it was some kitchen appliance sitting on a countertop next to the toaster. The casual, silly nickname stuck throughout the entire Manhattan Project, despite the device being capable of vaporizing entire cities. Brilliant physicists walked around discussing the Gadget during coffee breaks as if they were building a new blender. Dark humor apparently helped them sleep better at night. 33. A pair of clever con men invented a completely fake flying saucer crash story in Aztec, New Mexico back in 1948. The two hustlers spun wild tales about recovered alien bodies, hoping to sell their fictional details to eager believers. Their ridiculous hoax eventually got exposed as pure fraud, but something truly weird happened afterward. Either invented details about extraterrestrial corpses accidentally slipped into the growing Roswell legend that was still developing at the time. Today's alien body conspiracy theories trace directly back to two forgotten New Mexico scammers. 34. Spanish missionaries arrived in New Mexico with a mission to convert Pueblo people, but their methods were absolutely brutal. They burned down sacred kivas, which were the underground religious chambers Pueblo communities had used for their ceremonies for countless generations. Anyone caught performing traditional native dances faced severe consequences, including public whippings in front of their neighbors. The missionaries genuinely believed destroying entire spiritual systems was somehow doing God's work on earth. The Pueblo people quietly preserved their traditions in secret until the day finally came to revolt. 35. The sleepy little town of Las Vegas, New Mexico became the unlikely Wild West celebrity hotspot nobody talks about anymore. This dusty stopover had more famous outlaw traffic passing through its streets than any other town in American history. Jesse James rode in, Butch Cassidy hid out, and Doc Holliday himself walked those same dusty streets regularly. The town's strategic railroad location made it basically the criminal airport hub of the 1800s. Modern tourists confuse it with the flashy Nevada gambling city, but this one had way rougher cowboys. 36. The famous Four Corners Monument draws millions of tourists who proudly stand on the only spot where four American states actually meet. And visitors spread their arms and legs across New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, and Colorado for the perfect family photo opportunity. There is just one tiny embarrassing problem with this whole patriotic ritual. The original surveyors made a mistake and placed the monument about 1,800 feet away from the actual geographic corner. Millions of tourist selfies have been taken in the wrong location. 37. New Mexico proudly wrote its state constitution in both English and Spanish back in 1911 before officially joining the United States. This bilingual founding document made it the only state in American history created with two languages holding equal legal weight. Every single government law, court ruling, and official record must still respect both languages inside state boundaries. The founders recognized that Spanish-speaking families had lived on this land centuries before English speakers even arrived. New Mexico basically told the rest of America to deal with it gracefully. 38. Smokey Bear started as a real living black bear cub rescued from a devastating wildfire in the town of Capitan in 1950. Firefighters found the tiny burned cub clinging desperately to a charred tree, barely alive and covered in painful injuries. Officials shipped the brave little survivor to the National Zoo in Washington, where he became a famous celebrity. The wildfire prevention mascot everyone knows from commercials was never just a cartoon idea created in some boardroom. Smokey was an actual bear with real burn scars and genuine heroism. 39. The entire town of Truth or Consequences financially backed one of the wildest space dream projects in modern history. Residents voluntarily taxed themselves to fund the massive $212 million Spaceport America complex out in the empty desert. This optimistic little community genuinely believed their small town would become the future launching pad for commercial space tourism. The whole facility sits mostly empty today, waiting for rocket companies to finally deliver on their promises. Meanwhile, locals keep paying the taxes, hoping their gamble someday works out. 40. The Bosque Redondo internment camp in 1864 was basically a death sentence disguised as government relocation for Native Americans. The Pecos River water surrounding the camp was so incredibly salty it caused mass outbreaks of dysentery among every prisoner forced to drink it. Despite seeing entire families dying from sickness, the United States Army kept forcing all 8,500 Navajo and Mescalero Apache captives to consume it anyway. Soldiers knew the water was killing people, but simply shrugged and kept the deadly camp operating. 41. New Mexico State Code still officially outlaws the ancient practice of dueling between two angry gentlemen, settling disputes with pistols at dawn. The strangest part about this forgotten law is the bizarre, old-fashioned language still sitting in the books today. It specifically mentions the 1800s phrase of calling out another man, referring to the formal dueling challenges of the cowboy era. So nobody has dueled in New Mexico for well over a century, but technically the crime still exists. Lawmakers apparently never bothered updating this charmingly outdated rule. 42. The Fat Man. Atomic bomb design was an engineering nightmare that depended on absolutely perfect timing down to the millisecond. Scientists packed the deadly device with 32 explosive lenses arranged in a strange shape resembling a soccer ball's pattern. Every single lens had to detonate at exactly the same instant for the bomb to actually work properly. If just one lens misfired by even a tiny fraction of a millisecond, the entire massive weapon would have become a complete expensive dud. Engineers basically built history's most dangerous soccer ball. 43. An Albuquerque radio station accidentally became part of the Roswell cover-up in the most dramatic live broadcast moment imaginable. The station's teletype newsfeed was busy transmitting real-time updates about the mysterious flying disc recovery to listeners across New Mexico. Military officials apparently freaked out completely about the public leak happening in real time. They literally forced the feed to shut off in the middle of an unfinished sentence. Radio audiences across the state heard static where the alien news should have been, permanently feeding conspiracy theories forever. 44. A Spanish friar named Marcos de Niza returned from his 1539 New Mexico expedition telling the biggest lie in southwestern history. And he swore on his holy robes that he had personally seen 7 magnificent cities of gold shimmering in the desert distance. Spanish officials absolutely lost their minds over the fake story and immediately funded a massive expedition. That single completely fabricated lie triggered the entire Coronado invasion that devastated countless native communities for years. One dishonest friar basically launched colonial conquest across half the American Southwest for imaginary treasure. 45. Geronimo became the legendary fierce Apache leader everyone associates with the Arizona desert and its rugged landscape. Plot twist, the famous warrior was actually born right here in New Mexico near present-day Truth or Consequences. His actual birthplace sits firmly within New Mexico state boundaries, despite Hollywood and popular culture completely refusing to admit this fact. Arizona happily claims him as their own tough guy, while New Mexicans quietly roll their eyes at the historical misunderstanding. The real Geronimo started his incredible journey inside New Mexico territory, not somewhere else. 46. Shiprock Rock Formation holds deep sacred meaning for the Navajo people, stretching back through countless generations of spiritual practice. The towering volcanic monolith is so important that all climbing has been completely banned since the 1970s out of absolute respect. Tribal leaders made the decision final and permanent, protecting the sacred site from adventure seekers forever. Every single year, thrill-chasing climbers still sneak up there illegally despite knowing the rules perfectly well. They get caught, they get fined, and Shiprock just silently watches another disrespectful human trespasser. 47. Congress actually forced New Mexico license plates to proudly display the letters USA because of the most embarrassing geography failure in American history. Americans from other states kept treating mail addressed to New Mexico as international foreign mail headed to Mexico itself. Packages got mysteriously delayed, letters got unnecessarily stamped with international postage, and entire families were confused. Government officials finally got tired of explaining basic geography to their own citizens. Adding USA to the license plates was basically a forced reminder that New Mexico is genuinely part of America. See 48. Ghost Ranch in northern New Mexico sits on top of one of the most insane dinosaur graveyards ever discovered anywhere on planet Earth. Paleontologists have pulled nearly 1,000 complete Coelophysis skeletons from a single, shocking fossil bed buried beneath the red rocks. Scientists believe one massive flash flood wiped out an entire dinosaur herd in a single catastrophic event 200 million years ago. The ancient reptiles got buried together so perfectly that their bones remain remarkably preserved today. New Mexico basically hosts the world's biggest dinosaur mass grave. 49. The Waste Isolation Pilot Plant near Carlsbad buries America's most dangerous nuclear weapons waste 2,150 feet underground in ancient salt formations. Engineers specifically designed the incredible facility to safely contain radioactive material for 10,000 entire years into the future. That means the warning signs down there have to communicate across civilizations that might not even speak English anymore. Scientists seriously debated how to design radioactive danger symbols that future humans would still understand. Our descendants might find very confused pictograms sitting in salt caves. 50. Spanish troops invented one of the most horrifying living warning signs in New Mexico colonial history back in 1599. After capturing 2 Hopi men during fighting, soldiers deliberately cut off one hand from each prisoner as punishment. The mutilated victims were then released and sent walking back home to their families and communities. Yea, Spanish commanders specifically wanted these broken men to serve as walking warnings to every other pueblo watching. The cruel message was absolutely clear: resist Spain, and your loved ones will return home horribly maimed forever. 51. In the town of Las Cruces, somebody made it officially illegal to carry a lunchbox down Main Street, and nobody has ever bothered fixing this weird rule. The ridiculous law actually passed during an older era when local officials worried about criminals smuggling concealed weapons inside metal lunch containers. Lawmakers figured banning lunchboxes entirely was easier than dealing with clever smugglers. The original reasons completely disappeared decades ago, but the silly ordinance quietly survived every city council review. Hungry workers carrying sandwiches down Main Street are technically breaking the law today. 52. The massive steel tower holding the Trinity atomic bomb stood 100 feet tall before the historic 1945 test detonation. The explosion was so unimaginably powerful that it completely vaporized the entire thick steel structure in a single blinding flash. Scientists later searched the desert and found only the concrete footings remaining where the tower once proudly stood. Those pathetic little concrete stumps still exist today at the Trinity test site as official National Historic Monuments. Tourists visit annually to stare at what is basically the world's most expensive leftover foundation. 53. Rancher Mac Brazel was living the quietest possible life when he accidentally stumbled onto the most famous UFO crash in American history. The old cowboy did not own a telephone, did not have a radio, and had absolutely no idea flying saucers were currently a huge national obsession. He simply noticed strange debris scattered across his New Mexico property and casually reported it to the sheriff. Mac was genuinely clueless about the alien craze sweeping America and had no reason to lie about what he honestly saw. 54. The Tig-X War of 1541 started over something so petty and embarrassing, it honestly sounds like a bad joke. Coronado's Spanish soldiers got cold during the New Mexico winter and demanded that Pueblo men hand over their warm woven blankets immediately. Like when the freezing Pueblo people naturally refused to surrender their own clothing, Spanish colonists actually tortured them viciously as punishment. Entire villages were burned, and innocent people died because European invaders forgot to pack proper winter gear. History's dumbest war started over literally demanding blankets from strangers. 55. The infamous Lincoln County War of 1878 turned New Mexico into a complete bloody war zone over the absolute stupidest reason imaginable. Dozens of men died in violent gunfights, all because of a petty legal dispute involving an insurance policy left behind by a dead man named Emil Fritz. 2 rival factions fought brutally over who deserved the deceased man's money, hiring hired guns and terrorizing the entire county. Billy the Kid himself got swept into this senseless conflict. The whole war basically boiled down to expensive paperwork. 56. The Rio Grande Gorge Bridge stretches impossibly across a deep canyon standing 650 feet above the churning river below. When engineers first proposed building this massive structure, skeptics wondered loudly if anyone would ever actually need to use it. The surrounding area was empty desert with almost nobody living nearby and practically zero traffic demand. Despite the pessimism, the bridge got built anyway and somehow became one of the most photographed spots in New Mexico. Modern tourists drive hours just to peer nervously over its terrifying railings. 57. New Mexico finally became the 47th state admitted to the United States on January 6, 1912, after decades of painful waiting. The admission happened 6 entire months before Arizona officially joined the American family. That beat Arizona into statehood, despite Arizona having a larger population at the time and being considered more culturally Americanized by Congress. New Mexicans still love pointing out this historical victory whenever Arizona gets too cocky about anything. Sometimes patience genuinely pays off against louder neighbors who got all the attention. 58. Carlsbad Cavern's enormous big-room chamber got discovered in 1898 under some of the silliest circumstances in American exploration history. A curious 16-year-old cowboy named Jim White climbed down into the mysterious dark opening with his teenage buddy. The friend's actual nickname was Pothead, which is genuinely how this legendary discovery went into the history books. And these two random teenagers ended up finding America's fifth largest cave system purely out of boredom. Today, millions of tourists visit this underground wonder first explored by kids with nothing better to do. 59. Philmont Scout Ranch in northern New Mexico hosts 18,000 Boy Scouts every single year on its massive wilderness property. The ranch holds the impressive title of the largest camping operation anywhere on the entire planet. What most cheerful scouts roasting marshmallows never learn is that their peaceful camping ground has an incredibly bloody history. The very same land was once soaked in the violence of the Maxwell Land Grant War, where countless settlers died fighting over property rights. Those happy campfires sit directly on top of old battlefields today. 60. Over 200 Navajo people died of freezing cold and starvation during the horrific Long Walk Winter March in 1864. The United States Army refused to slow down the pace even when families begged for basic mercy and food. Soldiers kept pushing exhausted survivors faster than their broken bodies could possibly handle across 300 brutal miles. Mothers carrying children collapsed in the snow. Elderly grandparents froze to death overnight, and nobody stopped. The military simply saw dead bodies as problems solved, rather than human tragedies deserving genuine compassion. 61. The small town of Raton, New Mexico, has one of the strangest clothing-related laws ever written into local history. It is officially illegal to wear a kimono while riding a horse inside town limits, for reasons nobody has ever publicly explained. The bizarre ordinance sits quietly in the books today, leaving locals and tourists genuinely baffled about what triggered the rule. Was there a kimono-wearing horseback riding incident once upon a time? Historians have absolutely no idea, and the original city council left zero helpful explanation behind. 62. Louis Hempelman served as a Manhattan Project health leader responsible for monitoring radiation exposure during the Trinity atomic test. Years later, he made one of the most chilling confessions in nuclear history about what really happened to nearby New Mexican residents. He admitted that a few people were probably overexposed to dangerous radiation during the blast. Then he casually added that scientists just assumed they got away with it. That shocking quote revealed exactly how cold the government felt about civilian lives caught inside the fallout zone. On the 63. The famous 1995 alien autopsy video convinced millions of Americans that actual Roswell footage of dissected extraterrestrials finally existed. Believers watched the grainy black and white film in complete shock, arguing passionately about its authenticity on television shows everywhere. The maker of the video eventually confessed the entire thing was a complete fake, created with basic props. He admitted using sheep brains, a store-bought mannequin, and cheap special effects to fool everyone. One guy with a camcorder basically tricked half of America into believing aliens existed. 64. Governor Juan de Oñate eventually faced serious consequences from Spain itself over his absolutely horrifying cruelty toward New Mexico natives. Officials back in Madrid put him on trial for his brutal treatment of the Acoma Pueblo and other communities. Spanish judges reviewed his countless atrocities and decided he had somehow gone too far even by 1600s colonial standards. The government permanently exiled the disgraced governor as official punishment for his actions. When even the brutal Spanish Empire thinks you crossed the line, you genuinely deserve historical infamy forever. 65. New Mexico citizens pooled together $7,000 during the early 1880s to pay for the specific elimination of Billy the Kid. That amount represented an absolutely enormous sum of money at the time, saw equal to lifetimes of honest labor for ordinary people. Townsfolk, ranchers, and wealthy businessmen all chipped into this massive bounty fund. The money specifically paid the sheriff to hunt down and kill the notorious young outlaw. Basically, the entire state crowdfunded an assassination against a single troubled 21-year-old kid. 66. The Bandera Ice Cave near the town of Grants holds a geological paradox that absolutely should not exist in nature. Inside an ancient volcanic lava tube, a massive sheet of ice stays completely frozen all year long, no matter how hot the desert gets outside. Visitors can literally see ancient ice formations touching volcanic rock walls in the exact same cave chamber. Fire and ice sit together in perfect frozen harmony underground. Scientists explain the temperature trick, but tourists still leave genuinely confused about what they just witnessed. 67. New Mexico holds more PhD scientists per capita than any other state in the entire United States by a wide margin. The bragging right sounds impressive until you learn the slightly ominous reason behind the impressive statistic. The state hosts multiple secretive government research laboratories hidden across its empty desert landscapes. Places like Los Alamos, Sandia, and White Sands employ thousands of nuclear scientists, weapon designers, and physics researchers. Basically, every small-town grocery store probably has at least one genius customer buying milk and cereal. 68. The Gila Wilderness in New Mexico became the very first designated wilderness area anywhere on planet Earth back in 1924. That historic protection happened a full 40 years before the Federal Wilderness Act was signed into American law. Conservationist Aldo Leopold pushed for the designation, arguing that some wild places deserved permanent protection from human development. His revolutionary idea started right here in New Mexico and eventually inspired environmental protection movements worldwide. The entire concept of preserving untouched wilderness basically began inside one quiet New Mexico forest nobody talks about enough. 69. A stretch of Route 66 highway near Tijeras contains one of the strangest engineering tricks found on any American road. Special grooves cut into the asphalt play the song "America the Beautiful" when vehicles drive across them at the correct speed. The catch is that drivers must travel at exactly 45 miles per hour for the melody to work properly. Going one single mile per hour faster or slower completely destroys the song into useless noise. Patriotic drivers genuinely have to concentrate on their speedometer the entire time. 70. The Navajo Code. Talkers in World War II achieved something beautifully ironic that history books often gloss over too quickly. The United States government had spent decades violently beating the Navajo language out of Native children inside abusive boarding schools. Teachers punished kids for speaking their own ancestral words, trying to erase the language completely from existence. Then the military suddenly needed the same language to create an unbreakable battlefield code against Japan. The code talkers rescued America using the exact words the government had tried destroying for generations. 71. New Mexico grows more chili peppers than every other American state combined, making it the undisputed king of spicy agriculture. The state loves its peppers so much that it became the only place in America with an official state question written into law. That question is simply red or green, referring to which chili sauce residents prefer on their meals. Servers at every restaurant across New Mexico genuinely ask this question to every customer ordering food. Visitors who hesitate too long get quietly judged by locals, absolutely everywhere. And that wraps up 71 of the absolute dumbest, weirdest, and most ridiculous things about New Mexico that honestly make zero sense. Now here's the real question for you. Which one of these crazy facts genuinely shocked you the most? Drop your answer down in the comments below because everyone reading wants to know your pick. If you enjoyed this wild ride through the Land of Enchantment, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another episode of Dumbest Things. See you in the next video.